Hi you guys, we got such a residence of the underground depths. More precisely, the parents called and said that they caught a mole at the cottage. When it fell into our hands, it became clear that it was not a mole at all, but a little blind buddy. Although both animals are indefatigable diggers, in fact they are not even related. The mole is insectivorous and feeds on various larvae, worms, and in a word, animal food. While the blind mole is actually herbivorous and feeds mainly on roots and root crops. In fact, this makes him a true pest of summer residents. Once in the garden, it becomes a real disaster, destroying tubers and bulbs of cultivated plants. We will not fight him. We will just try to make an experiment by making our own little terrarium for him. Let's start with the assembly of a wooden frame made of a board 15 centimeters wide. We will fix the two together with screws. We do similar manipulations with each of the four corners. Next, we will still need a metal corner, which we fasten to the board. There will be 4 such corners, 2 on each side. Now the frame is ready, the corners are in place, and you can put the glass on top. This will become an observation wall in the future terrarium. To fix the glass itself, we will use wooden slats, which we then fasten to the already finished frame. In total, we got such a house for an underground inhabitant. It is transparent on both sides and has wooden sides on the sides about 30 meters high and 90 centimeters wide. At the bottom of the legs are spacers for fixing the vertical position. Of course, the next stage will be filling the terrarium with dirt. The most ordinary dirt from the field in order to recreate the conditions as close as possible to the real ones. And this is what 1 bucket of dirt in a terrarium looks like. There are still 14 left. After filling the glass, it became incredibly mirrored. This will interfere with the shooting a little bit, but it's not going to affect our experiment on live today. Everything is ready to move in, and so let's move on to the most interesting part of the video. We will launch the rodent and begin monitoring. It will soon be buried underground, so now is the best time to examine the animal. Does our blind little buddy have pretty ivory-colored fur? Or is it ash yellow as for an underground animal? What do you guys think? Let us know into the comments. The body is long, the muzzle is slightly flattened. Where the eyes should be, there are folds of skin covered with bristles. But the most interesting distinguishing feature is the huge teeth and their sharp, protruding incisors that are the main digging tool. Perhaps the first disadvantage of our design is that a lot of dirt and the ceiling presses directly on our blind little buddy's head. He was going to have to take away a little bit extra, especially when he begins to dig holes from the ground. Even more will appear from above. And the rodent is quite brave. He doesn't really see any danger, but feels that it is necessary to defend itself and goes into danger pose. Imagine our surprise when we saw his ears that are not really like anybody else's. The ones we're used to seeing in animals. There are no auricles, just small tunnels in the head carefully hidden under a small layer of wool. Here the blind man found a root on the ground and began to gnaw it, grabbed, and holds the habits with its front paws, like all rodents. And so the blind man began to dig, or rather he is not digging yet, since the bulldozer is scattering boulders. We thought that he was trying to dig with his paws, but he's actually trying to dig his head into the ground. Although finally the paws began to move with his front paws, he rakes with his hind ones, throws back the earth, and gets to work, which he knows how to do the best in life. Everything goes into play, and the paws begin to dig, and the head pushes the earth extra aside. I tried my luck in one direction, then switched to another corner, returned to the old place once again. This guy is really restless. We put our camera on a time lapse just so that you would be able to see what the next hour of the digger's hustle looked like. I gotta say, he is really trying, but digging a hole in crumbly soil is difficult, even for a professional in tunneling. After a lot of effort, the time was spent on the digging process. No result was achieved. Our Fluffy decided to wash his face. I mean, who would have thought that an animal living underground would be so clean? We decided to please our little mole a little and fit him with a delicious carrot. Let him eat a little bit and replenish his calorie supply. I gotta say, it really turned out to be a delicacy for an herbivorous rodent. With such an appetite, he pounced on the carrot, nibbled it, and savored it. Then he took a break, and would you believe that he tried to sharpen his teeth? But what kind of sound it makes? We've never seen this before. It seems that after a couple of bites, the root vegetable decided that the incisors were blunted. Once the teeth became sharp again, the eating continued. He wrapped it around his two paws and nibbled at it. The whole day has already passed, then the construction of the terrarium, then the filling of the dirt, and then the settlement, but we still have yet to see the most important thing, namely the tunneling process. The next action will remain behind the scenes, and so we took the rodent out, soaked the ground, and launched him back and let him in there for overnight. The next morning we came in, and the mole was nowhere to be found, and there were no carrots either. The whole earth is dug from up above, but you can't really see yourself. There was not even a hole leading underground, but a bunch of tunnels that have appeared in the ground, and it is clearly visible, both from one side and from the other. Such quarters are not bad, but the rodent itself is nowhere to be seen. And finally, we finished to find a resident of our terrarium. Now we can see how it works. He got out and listened. Who's walking around? What's all the fuss about? What is it? But you can see now how he pushes apart part of the excavated earth out of his house with his head. It may not be very good after all, I mean it happens underground, but it is clear that the rodent clears the tunnel with his head like a bulldozer. And he also moves so fast underground that you just have to keep an eye on him. Once a lot of rocks gathered across the roof, the process of pushing it out of the hole began again. He just stood there for a while, got a breath of fresh air, and went back to work. Such outings were repeated many times, and funnily enough, each time our little buddy appeared in a different spot. And now let's try to look inside. He has so many branches in there that it's kind of like a whole subway system with different levels of depth. Fortunately, our terrarium is transparent, and its width is only 15 centimeters, so we can consider everything in detail. There are not just corridors here, but whole chambers or storerooms where future stocks will be demolished, and their sizes are several times larger than that of the rodent itself, both in width and height. You can easily turn around, wash up, put yourself in order. Maybe that's why there are so many different rooms in here. Each one has its own purpose. By the way, the construction does not stop for 1 minute. Here we can look at everything in detail. In order to go deeper or dig a new tunnel, the rodent fluffs the ground with its front paws. And if the soil does not give in, then the teeth go in. And so, in turn, with paws, then with teeth, millimeter by millimeter. And when there is a lot of soil, he switches back to the bulldozer mode, shoveling up the earth. And this is how fussy he looks for an hour if you shoot this whole thing on time lapse. Our rodent friend actually did a good job and climbed back up, perhaps in search of new food. Again, we offer him a carrot, and again our blind buddy began to gnaw at it greedily. We thought that he would drag it back into the hole, but no, he just laid down next to us and savored it. Literally just a few minutes passed, and our blind little buddy seemed to hear us, stopped, and began to remember where he came from. So blind that he can't see his hole right next to him. Moreover, in his attempts to find it, he completely buried it. Now it's clear why he's blind. But he doesn't give up and begins to dig a new hole. If he manages to lose himself in such a small space, But how was he able to navigate such a huge field? It didn't work out for him, so he went to go find another corner. And already here, he was able to fulfill his mission of getting home. It's good that all roads lead to his little metro system. But the most interesting thing now is that he now begins to bury the entrance to his house, threw the carrot in there, and closed up the door behind him. Every time, you guys, we showed you how we feed him on our own. I wonder how the process of stealing crops goes. If you guys are also interested, then put a plus sign in the comments, and we will try to simulate this situation in the next video. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.